Well, I think, again, this was something that came, in a sense, pretty naturally in my congressional district because we were big exporters of grain and of lumber, and the state as a whole has a great part of its product that goes in export from Microsoft and Weyerhaeuser and Boeing and the wheat fields of eastern Washington. And I think...
Don't forget those apples.
Yeah, the apples, that's right. Sometimes wasn't easy because of resistance in the United States, and sometimes with resistance, in the case of apples, by the way, from Japan. And here again, the two senators were important as being in the forefront of this. Warren Magnuson used to say that not dealing with the People's Republic of China, at a time when it was a growing reality, as it is certainly today with international trade, was foolish. And I'll never forget being in Douglas, Washington, and having a gnarled kind of guy my age now, a senior farmer getting up and asking me when we're going to have a reasonable trade policy with the People's Republic of China. This was a time when you called it Red China or Communist China, but the People's Republic of China, its full and correct name, was not usually the way it was referred to, but you could tell by the way he put the question that he was in favor of selling wheat to China and to Japan. In the case of Japan, I think our trade was a great link in cementing a relationship that has both a security and a trade side. And of course, it was important to our wheat and our aircraft. Boeing, I think, largest customer, individual customer, is JAL in Japan, and Boeing has been there for 50 years as Weyerhaeuser has been. So it's been a great trade link. With the case of the apples, I finally succeeded, after a lot of pressure and pushing and so on, to get the Japanese to accept red and yellow delicious apples. And the problem we had when they finally got to Japan is the Japanese consumers didn't like them very much. No arguing with taste, and they preferred Fuji apples. So we started then in eastern Washington to grow Fuji apples and ran into some resistance in getting those imported. But the one area where Japan has been resistant, of course, over the years, has been with products that compete with Japanese agricultural products. Since wheat was not a product that they grew, they had no problem accepting American wheat. But American rice and American cherries and American apples, that's something else. And for a while, American beef and American citrus. I remember when I was a young member of Congress, the Japanese sent a delegation of flour millers. These were people who had made an important business in Japan of milling American wheat into wheat flour. And they came to the Agriculture Committee to express their appreciation for American food aid, which after the war led to a change of dietary habits in Japan, which led to the consumption of wheat flour and noodles and all the things that followed. Mr. Pogue, the chairman of the Agriculture Committee, listened patiently to their expression of appreciation and congratulation, and then said to the group, now we must go into executive session. And the Japanese had no idea what the words executive session meant, which means strangers out, we're going to meet alone here. And Mr. Pogue, disappointed with their lack of response and not getting up and leaving, said, gentlemen, the committee will now go into executive session. Thank you very much. And the Japanese bowed and bowed. And finally, in about the fourth time, he asked them to recognize the committee was about to go into executive session. Will somebody please take these people and escort them out of the room? And suddenly the Japanese got the idea they were being thrown out. And they had no idea why. And were obviously embarrassed and confused. And I rushed out after them and couldn't think of any way to apologize because there was just a misunderstanding. So I decided to invite them all to dinner. And I was then unmarried, and I had a couple of young Japanese interns in the office, and I gave them the rest of the day off to prepare some Japanese hors d'oeuvres, and I asked whether I should go down and buy some sake. And one of them told me, no, scotch. Scotch. And so I bought some scotch. We had a lot of young staffers over. We had a wonderful evening, and wound up with all the Japanese singing old Japanese university songs. And we put them in the cabs.
Quite a lot of scotch.
Yeah, a lot of scotch. But the end of the story is that later on, when I went to Japan several times to be part of congressional delegations that visited Japan, I could never get into the country without the flour millers having a dinner for me. And it kind of symbolizes the fact that in Japan, relationships, once they're made, are very seldom broken. And year after year after year, I would come to Japan, and all the four who had been in the hearing room that day and who had been at dinner this night would jointly host a dinner for me in Tokyo. And many, many times, and much more richly repaying the hospitality. Included in the group was the father of the present empress, or the immediate present empress. And it was an indication, again, of how in Japan relationships are very, very important. And when I had a chance to come to Japan year after year for many years thereafter, it was just one of those relationships that became extremely important to me when I had the honor of being appointed ambassador in 1997.